This episode is sponsored by Artifacts. Artifacts is based out of Front Royal, Virginia, and is a fellowship opportunity for Catholic men. Each month, they gather to network, socialize, and hear from inspiring speakers, building brotherhood, strengthening faith, and creating opportunities to grow together. For more information, go to www.artifacts.life or follow on Instagram at Artifacts Group VA. That's Artifacts Group VA. And speaking of inspiring speakers, we have Sean Glass today. Welcome.
What's going on, man?
Not much. Thanks for coming.
Well, it's funny Artifacts is your sponsor because I'm actually giving the talk at Artifacts tonight.
Yeah, well, because of this, right? They heard about this podcast.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Like, hey, bring him on.
Headhunted. All right, well, I'm going to read a little bio. As I said, it's off of the Echelon Front website, and then I added a little bit about your beef company at the end because they conveniently left that off. Ridiculous.
Of course they did.
Yeah. No shameless plugs. All right, here we go. Sean Glass is a former U.S. Navy SEAL officer and combat leader with 13 years of service and 3 deployments to Afghanistan, Iraq, and Eastern Africa. He led 5 SEAL platoons in Iraq against ISIS, gaining firsthand insight into the impact of effective leadership in demanding high-pressure environments. After returning from Iraq, he served as the officer in charge of training for the West Coast SEAL teams, where he developed leadership programs and mentored the next generation of SEAL leaders. After leaving active duty in 2019, he became the COO of a venture-backed construction technology startup, helping scale operations and build a decentralized team-first culture. He now serves as a leadership instructor with Echelon Front, bringing a blend of tactical and executive experience to help organizations build high-performance teams that thrive in uncertainty. And most recently, he co-founded or founded Primal Beef with Jocko Willink and a few other partners, a subscription-based premium beef company offering locally sourced, dry-aged, and hand-cut meats that provide optimal tenderness and flavor. How's that?
That's great. The only thing that got left out was the most important piece about being a husband and a father to 5.
See, I always leave that out, and here's why. A few times, if you look online, sometimes people have a really big presence and other people don't.
Yeah.
And so I'll say, and he's a husband and a father of 3. And they're like, well, it's actually 8 now.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, gosh, okay.
You got to remember the audience you're catering to. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you have 5?
5. Yeah.
Okay.
For now.
What's the age group?
My oldest is 14, and my youngest
Okay.
turned 6 on the 29th of October.
Nice.
Yeah. So there's more or less somewhere between 23, 24 months, and then I think our closest two are 17 months apart, maybe, which coincides very neatly with deployment schedules in the military.
Probably unrelated.
Yeah, completely unrelated.
Yeah, just all God's providence.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how's farm life?
Oh, it's great, man.
Yeah.
So we have about a 60-acre farm here in Bentonville, which is right outside of Front Royal. And I grew up on a farm. We raised horses. And I knew when we started having kids, we were in San Diego at the time because that's where we were stationed. We were there for 15 years. And when my wife and I got married, that's where we had all of our children was in San Diego. So when we got out of the military and made the move over here to Front Royal for all the awesome things that Front Royal offers, to include a lot of our family is here now, we knew we wanted to give them that style of life, have some space, have some responsibility. So we bought a farm about 4.5 years ago. We raise South Pole cattle. That's the main thing that's on the farm. Chickens, donkeys, that sort of things. But I love it, man. It's like my little slice of heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you been wanting to go back to the farm life ever since you left? Or was that sort of like a rejection as a child, and then now?
No,
now
it was kind of a rejection as a child.
Yeah.
We had every farm animal that you shouldn't have. We had Arabian horses, which are just the biggest pain. We had emus for a long period of time, and then that didn't work out. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
We had all kinds of things, and as a kid, at least how I was raised on the farm, like there was really no joy from it. It was just all work, and it wasn't even like the talk that you normally get of, hey, this is character build. It was just like, hey, go do it. So I didn't really enjoy it, but I did enjoy the space. I definitely enjoyed having the land and room to roam, and my parents gave us a lot of freedom to just roam the land. So, if we'd come home, do your chores, and then on the weekends or after school when I was younger, I would just kind of disappear into the woods and goof around. And for a period of time, our cousins lived next door, which is relative when you have land, like how close next door is. But we would just link up and go play around in the woods. So I knew I missed that. But then towards the end of my time in the SEAL teams, I really started to get the yearning to raise livestock and go back to that and pair that with having the farm for the kids. So I love it, man. Like I can sit out there all day long and just look at my cows or be in the pasture with my cows and be perfectly content.
Yeah. Kind of living the cowboy life.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's did your folks have cows?
No, I don't know why.
Okay.
The cows, come to find out, are the easiest animal I think to raise.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had horses, which was just a pain.
Okay.
And I didn't even get to enjoy them. You know, it's not like we were riding them all the time. They were show animals and whatnot. And we were breeding them. And then we had emus, which is just the dumbest animal of all time. So there's nothing fun about them.
Can you eat emus?
Yeah, they're actually really good. It's a red meat. It's a very lean red meat, very similar to maybe like a 90% lean beef. Like they're tasty.
Really?
Yeah, but I mean, they're not fun to hang around. They're like giant dinosaurs. I got the amount of times I got kicked or pecked or by them was.
I bet.
Yeah.
So did your family just have them for show?
Well, they had the emus for a while. I don't know how this craze came to our hometown in Texas, but for a while they were supposed to be like the next cash crop of livestock.
Really?
A healthier alternative to beef, red meat, tasty, but way less cholesterol, way less fat, way less all of those things that in the early 90s people thought were killing you. So a lot of people around our town went into raising emus for meat, and then surprised it just never took off. Go figure.
That's so funny. I don't think I've ever heard of that.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it considered like exotic meat or not?
I think here, yes, it definitely would be considered exotic meat. I think their goal was to make it just considered everyday meat. But, you know, you process a cow, you get 400 pounds of beef. You process an emu, you're getting not even 100. You know, you're getting tens of pounds of beef. So
what's their development time?
So they grow a lot faster than cattle do. Like if you're grass feeding cattle, even grain feeding, if you're finishing them on grain and you're not giving them disgusting growth hormones and things to artificially boost them, it takes a couple years to get them to where they need to be for processing weight. But not the emus. I mean, I think within about a year they're ready to be processed.
Okay. Yeah, it's I guess.
And they lay eggs, right? So they give you, like, a cow is very similar to a female human pregnancy cycle. It's 9 months, and they're going to give you one a year. So, you know, the emus, they lay eggs all the time, like a big chicken. So you can get a lot more chicks out of them.
Okay. Were there people in your, like, was it a big military town that you grew up in, or was your
none?
Okay.
Yeah, none.
Okay.
So we grew up in a small town in Texas, outside of Dallas, about an hour. The nearest town is called Corsicana, but we were outskirts of Corsicana, so there was no military bases or anything like that.
So all of that was that just like books and movies?
Yeah, books.
Was the inspiration?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like every Arnold movie back in the day was always inspirational. But I was in our library in Corsicana, and I just found a book about seals. I even know what it was. It just had this cool picture of this guy in a jungle in Vietnam, and this was
Rambo style. Yeah, totally.
Legit Rambo style. And this was early to mid 90s, so before there was even a lot of information out there about any type of special operations forces. So I read that book, and it was just like life-changing. It was like, this is it. That's what I want to do from here on out. And then just made it my goal to do that.
Did you get in touch with recruiters or anything like that early on, or was it like, I got to finish school, do well in sports, but that's where I'm going?
Yeah,
like,
I knew it's where I was going, but I was probably 13 or 14 when I read that, so I had a lot of runway ahead of me. So the big choice for me was, do I go right out of high school, or do I go to college first? And my original intention was, let's go right out of high school, and my parents' advice was, hey, doesn't matter if you want to go in as an officer or if you still want to go enlisted, but just go to school, because you're not going to want to go back to school after you do, 15, 20 years of service. You're not going to want to go back and get a degree. So that might have been their way of hoping that I fell in love in college and abandoned those dreams. Yeah. But I chose to go to college, and then I applied for a slot, an officer slot, and I was fortunate enough to get it. So I graduated college and then went in right after I graduated.
Okay. Do you think you had an easier time going the college route? Or
it's definitely easier to go enlisted.
Okay.
And that's nothing against, like, you go through the exact same training. It's just for every 20 enlisted guys, there's one officer. Okay. Just because you don't need that many officers. It's not like there's anything special, but it's just a numbers game. So a platoon has about somewhere between 18 and 21 people in it. Of those people, you're going to have one officer in charge, or platoon commander, and then you're going to have 2 junior officers. So that's 3 people out of 21 are officers, and the rest are, your hard charging and enlisted guys. So it's just a numbers game. So it's definitely is easier to get a spot to go as an enlisted guy, but once you get to training, everybody goes through the exact same training.
Okay. I feel like maybe it's just a phase, but it seems like in the last 5 to 10 years, every guy that's a Navy SEAL or, you know, some sort of operator has like come out, started a podcast, started a business, which I actually think are good things. There's no knock against that. But I'm wondering if that's sort of like watering down the SEAL community, or like as a SEAL, like, do you see that as, and I'm not talking about success, like nothing wrong with starting a company or a beef company, but kind of like being a podcaster or going on podcasts and then just talking about the Navy SEALs, or like even more recently, it's almost like the conspiracy theory type stuff, or Bin Laden or whatever. And it's like, what do guys in the community who maybe aren't as outspoken think about that? What's their view of that? Is it?
I don't think it's positive. I mean, what it does, in my opinion, is just waters down kind of the mystique of the military and of that community in general. And there's a really good thing about a certain level of mystique, and don't confuse mystique with like lies or exaggerations, but just you know, case in point, when I picked that book up, it's the first I'd ever heard about SEALs, and there wasn't a whole lot of information even in that book. It was enough to captivate a 13-year-old boy in wanting to do that. And I think there is something good that comes with that certain level of mystique.
Sure. Yeah, because it seems to me, and this is as an outsider who's not in the community, it seems like you can, like, I've seen your podcasts, but on Jocko's, it's like, okay, like, what was your service like? What's your beef? Like, it's kind of a promotion, but even within that, it's kind of like, tell me your war stories. Tell me how to lead. Tell me how, you know, how can young guys start their own companies? That's kind of the focus. Whereas some of the people that go on, like Tucker Carlson or some of these bigger podcasts, it almost seems like, here, you know, I was a SEAL and here's the true story. It seems kind of clickbaity. And I think if I was a SEAL, I'd be like, dude, what are you doing? Like, we know that you killed Bin Laden, but why are you, or did you? Like,
well, apparently like 37 people killed Bin Laden. If you listen to all that stuff.
That's the new thing. But yeah, it just seems like it's, I get to your point, maybe taking away some of the mystique, but also maybe revealing things that technically aren't illegal. Like, you don't have a NDA, but maybe shouldn't be said on the biggest podcast in the world. Like, it just seems odd to me.
More, it's like, what's your intent? So is your intent to share perspective and life lessons that you learn that are going to help other people? I think that's very different than just the bloviating and the look how awesome I am. As long as there's been a military in any country, there's been both of those things.
Sure.
There's a big talking point in the military, especially in special operations, about like, you know, don't get out and do this. Don't get out and write this book. Don't get out and do the other thing. Well, I mean, the reason that World War II is so well chronicled is because that's exactly what soldiers did. Like, they came back and they wrote down their experiences, and they told their experiences in whether that was interviews or books or those different things. So there's a balance, I think. And there's definitely lessons that are learned. You know, combat is a reflection of life. It's just more intense, shall we say. So the lessons that you learn in combat and training and all those things, they're very valuable lessons for life as well. And I don't think there's anything wrong with people sharing those those very valuable lessons.
Yeah, and this isn't to knock on Navy SEALs who come out and just, like, their entire book is just their experience. But to your point, there does seem to be a difference in intent when you think about, is it Dave Burke, his book, the new like lead and win, or the need to lead. The need to lead. Okay, that's right. I knew it was a Top Gun reference somehow. Or Jocko's book, right? Extreme Ownership. Those have war stories in them, but it's not, look, I fought in war, I'm awesome, can I come on your podcast? It's, here's what we did, and then here's the leadership lesson. Right.
And which a lot of those are mistakes. It's like, hey, here's a mistake. Here's something we screwed up. And luckily, you know, it didn't kill me. And this is the big lesson that I learned from it.
Yeah. I remember listening to you. I think I actually reached out to you like the week before you went on Jocko's podcast and was like, hey, you should come on. And then you didn't respond. And then like a few days later, episode with you on Jocko. And I was like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. Huge podcast. But on there, he asked you a bunch of stuff about your deployments and all that. We don't have to get into all that because I think he did a really good job of outlining all that. But maybe just for like the next 10 or 15 minutes, we can go through just roughly what your deployments were like, how you prep for those, and then kind of maybe the differences in the three different areas you went.
They were all three very different. And I was very fortunate. It sounds weird to say that, but I mean, if you go into the military or you go into a community like special operations, like you want to do the job,
Right.
And you don't want to go through all that training, the selection, the hours away from home, all of that, and then not get to actually use the skill set that you developed.
Yeah.
So first deployment was to Afghanistan as a brand new guy. So I was what they call an assistant platoon commander. So basically second in command of a platoon in theory.
Okay. And what year was this?
This was in 2011 into 2012.
Okay.
Now the structure of a platoon, at least in the SEAL teams, is you have your platoon commander that's overall in charge, your platoon chief that's your tactical expert, and runs basically the day-to-day function of the SEAL platoon, and then when you're looking at a mission, the tactics and all of those things are what he is planning, that he's responsible for. So the platoon commander is overall in charge. The platoon chief is running the tactical show and advising the platoon commander. So that should be the tightest relationship in a platoon. Okay. And then the assistant platoon commanders are, and there's usually 2 per platoon, are kind of the second in command, if you will. And then there's a hierarchy of enlisted guys as well. So
for those 2 that are kind of like co-equal, do they split the platoon, or is the idea if one is unavailable, the other one becomes
so in theory they split the platoon, and they'll say, hey, we have 2 squads. So you have a platoon as squad 1, squad 2. So they'll say, hey, like for me, I was in charge of squad 2, and my other AOIC, who was, it's interesting because he was more experienced than me because he was a prior enlisted guy. But I commissioned before he did, so seniority-wise, I outranked him by like a couple of months. But right. Rob had a lot more experience than I had. So Rob was in charge of Squad 1, and I was in charge, technically, the platoon commander's in charge of everything. But when you break it into Squad 1 was run by Rob, and I was running Squad 2. So that's kind of the breakdown of that. So that deployment, we finished our workup cycle, and then spent 11 months in Afghanistan doing what we call village stability operations. So village stability operations is not a classic SEAL mission set. I mean, the SEAL mission sets are basically direct action, special reconnaissance, hostage rescue, like that. That's kind of what we train for. So at the time that we deployed to Afghanistan, 2011 to 12, the theory of how we're going to win this war, the strategy was focusing less on what we call direct action missions, which is like bad guy A lives in that compound, go get him because the world's a better place without bad guy A. Mm-hmm. Now it was more of how do we empower the Afghani population to basically do this job themselves so that we don't have to be over here for, the next 30 or 40 years. So village stability operations was the strategy they chose to try to make that a reality. And the theory of it is Afghan's very tribal. It's always been very tribal. So much so that when I was talking to some of these people that lived in these very remote villages about their president, Karzai, they had no freaking clue
who he was,
or that they had a president. Like all that matters to them is their village elder. Which is kind of cool in some ways.
Yeah.
But
whereas now people don't even know who our mayor is.
Yeah.
Right?
So as far as I'm concerned, it's Rob McDougal.
Might as well be.
Yeah. But they don't, they know their village elder, and that's really about it. And everything is handled basically at that village level. So now you're trying to get them to unify under one centralized government, and that's a very heavy lift.
Yeah.
So the theory behind village stability operations is embed very capable special operations forces. So Green Berets are really, they're called Army Special Forces. Like that's their designator. Their moniker is Green Berets. So if I go back and forth between those two, they're the same thing. So Green Berets, that is more of a traditional Green Beret job. Now, Green Berets can also do direct action, things like that, but they specifically train for what we would call unconventional warfare, which is by, with, and through a host nation. So you're partnering with them, building their capabilities, that sort of thing. So they were doing that job primarily, but there's just not enough of them. Mm-hmm. So then the SEALs started doing it. Marine Special Operations started to do it. Even some conventional forces start to do it as well. And basically the theory is embed small, capable units in these very remote villages, train up a police force based off of their local population. That local population's police force can now keep them safe. We link that police force into a provincial government that does the payroll, all of those different things, the future training, and the provincial government is linked into the central government. So now you've got central government running the provincial governments running these individual village police forces. Everybody gets along great in theory.
Okay.
In reality, not really how it played out.
Yeah,
but
I noticed you keep mentioning theory. Yeah.
Yes.
So the theory is that the local populace wants to cooperate.
Yep.
They're willing to train up a military force. They maybe want to help fund it. Is that the reality?
No.
Okay.
And there's, why would they? Everything has been solved at the village level. And that's their history, and they're very, very proud of that. And there's different tribes, and there's all kinds of different factors that come into play. And, the president, he's going to be a tribe. He's going to come from a specific tribe. And even if he genuinely wants what's best for everybody, good luck convincing the other tribes that that's really what's happening.
Right.
There's also just a lot of corruption and things like that. So my perception from what I saw was you had people that genuinely did want to provide their own security, and they wanted a better life than what was offered underneath the Taliban. But as we all know, that's not how it played out.
Right.
For a myriad of different factors.
Yeah. I think it's easy retrospectively to say this was a total failure. We shouldn't have been there at all. Most SEALs that I've talked to, or operators that I've talked to, don't think that. It seems like the common kind of conception is, well, we should have been there, maybe, at least to just show force and to take out those bad guys, but maybe trying to rehabilitate entire neighborhoods and tribes was a bit, we bit off more than we could chew with that.
I would agree with that general consensus. I would agree with the pretext for going to Afghanistan in the first place was the September 11th attacks were basically trained, harbored, not by the Taliban themselves, but by Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban allowed them to train and prepare for those things inside of Afghanistan. So there needed to be a response to handle Al-Qaeda, and the Taliban have this concept, and it's not just the Taliban, it's Afghanis. They have this concept of basically, I want to say it's Pashtunwali, but it's been a while, so I might be forgetting the actual term, but it's basically, once I offer my protection to someone, is for life. Doesn't really matter what they do. Like, they're honor bound to that. So my understanding is the government said, hey, give them over to us or let us do our thing. And they said, no, we can't do that. So then we came in, and then, 20 years of sustained conflict.
Right.
I think a better solution would have been to come in to deal with the Al-Qaeda forces, to deal with the Taliban that stood in their way, understanding the Taliban is not their real enemy. Because if you go back far enough, maybe we train those guys and put them in power. But Taliban wasn't the real enemy. But if they're going to stand in the way, then that's a factor you have to take into account. But there's no reason to stay there.
Okay.
Just dismantle the network. Take care of what needs to be taken care of, and then get out of the way.
Okay.
And just make sure that the Taliban understands. Don't harbor those people again, or the same things are going to keep happening.
Right. Show credible force.
Yes.
Take out the people you need to take out the people that are in the way, and then say, we're not sticking around. We're not helping you anymore, but we'll be back if there's problems.
Yes.
And then just go back. Okay.
Exactly. In an ideal world. But we have this concept that we're really good at nation building. And I don't know historically why we believe that.
Yeah.
But we have this concept that pops up every so often that we're going to be really good at this. And I think that some of that, if you want to give people the best of intentions, I think it's because freedom is amazing and we want people to have that. But it's not that easy. It's a lot more complex than that.
Right. You can't make people want to be free.
No, you can't. And even if they do, the system that they're operating underneath for thousands of years, if it doesn't support that, you're not going to change that system in 5 years.
Do you ever wake up and have a craving for Italian food? If that's the case, you should check out Osteria Maria's here in Front Royal, Virginia. Osteria's is where authentic Italian cuisine meets heartfelt hospitality. From Neapolitan wood-fired pizzas to handcrafted pastas and curated wines, each and every dish reflects true Italian tradition. We actually had owner Chef Biagio on the podcast, episode 42. Give it a listen. Osteria Maria's, where Italy comes to the Shenandoah Valley. Come for dinner Tuesday through Saturday, 5 to 9 p.m., or visit osteriamaria510.com for reservations. And be sure to follow them on Instagram at osteria.maria. Check them out. Thanks. While you're lighting your cigar, I'll ask you a longer question. Do you think that disconnect between the reality of what's happening in the Middle East and then American politicians or, especially the president, whoever's in charge, whoever's making these calls, is there just a disconnect with reality? Or do you think that the president, the cabinet, whoever's making these, the war command, are they making these decisions based on opinions from the generals who are disconnected? Because it seems like if you're on the ground and your platoon commander says, this isn't working, I'm going to talk to the next guy up and the next guy up, you'd think that would get back to the people in charge eventually to say, we're losing a bunch of men. We need to take out these targets and get out. So was that message not communicated, or the people at the top think, hey, well, it's politically, it's good that we're here, and so we don't really care about the guys on the ground speaking?
Yeah. I can give you my perspective from what I saw. And from what I saw, there was a lot of reports going up for what was happening on the ground that weren't truthful. So whether it's perpetual optimism or ego getting in the way and me not sending an honest report up saying, hey, this VSO thing in my province is not working. Mm-hmm. Now, we were I don't even say fortunate. We had awesome leadership, and VSO did work for us. And we cleared the insurgents out of our 2 areas that we were geographically responsible for, and we trained up a force, and we did our job. That was not the case necessarily for other platoons and other units that were doing VSO around us. You can't compare apples to apples because each province has a different flavor.
Right.
But the reports that were getting sent up were painting a very different picture than the reality on the ground. Mm. So leaders are paid to make decisions, and what they use to make decisions, the currency is information. And if the information is bad, they're still going to make a decision. Mm-hmm. They're just using bad information to make that decision. So I can only give that perspective because I don't know what decision making goes on up at the top levels.
Right.
I think anyone that's a student of history and warfare understands that the average time frame it takes for a counterinsurgency to be won is 2 decades. So going into it knowing that you're going to be fighting a counterinsurgency and thinking you're going to be the ones that figure out how to do it in 5 years is unrealistic. And the reason it takes 2 decades is because that's a generation. And you're basically trying to convince a younger generation that a new system is better than the old system. And that takes a lot of time.
Yeah. So where in Afghanistan were you?
We were very far up north. So the province was called Oimas province, and it was about as far north as you can get before you start to hit Tajikistan and those type of areas. So very pretty in like a biblical sense, like very pretty during certain times of year, mountains, all that cool stuff. So, and we were there for 11 months and we loved every second of it. Like we were where we wanted to be with the people we wanted to be with, doing what we wanted to do.
Did you have a base outside of that town, or
no? Like we were living in that town. And then once we established this base in Oimast, the bad guy headquarters was in a town called Kwajakinti or K2. So once we pacified and built up the security force for Oimast, we did a nighttime operation to clear the insurgents out of K2, and then we established a second stronghold in K2, and then spent the remainder of deployment basically doing the same thing there, building up a police force in K2 and denying the enemy terrain.
Okay, and how long were you there?
We were in K2 for about 6 months. So about 6 months in Oimast, and we kept some guys in Oimast. So we had enough to split forces. So we kept some guys in Oimast, and then we stood up the new one. And I was fortunate enough to be the officer in charge of the new site. Luckily, with my platoon chief, who was the best operator I've ever worked with, as my right hand man / sounding board and advisor for everything.
And who's that?
A guy named Dave Hansen, who just recently retired after I think 24 years of service.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And now he's he's one of the head guys over there at the C4 Foundation, which is who our beef company's partnered with, that does really good nonprofit work for SEALs and their families. Okay.
Very cool. So after Afghanistan, did you go to Iraq next?
After Afghanistan, it was Eastern Africa.
Okay.
So we came back, wrapped that tour up. I was fortunate enough to get to stay on as a platoon commander and just go right into that role. Most officers have to go away for what they call a disassociated tour. So You'll go to a training command, you'll go to a staff job, you'll get a little bit more rank.
Okay.
And then you'll get a chance to come back and be a platoon commander.
Is that sort of like a mental break? Is
no,
the idea?
I think
or
it's more just a timing thing career-wise.
Okay.
They want you to be a little bit more senior and get a different perspective before you take over a platoon. I was fortunate. I asked to stay, and my commanding officer said, "You're good." So I got to go right into a platoon commander tour. So I changed platoons. Took over a Foxtrot platoon, which I love to death, and we deployed to a place called the Crisis Response Element, which is undisclosed location in the Middle East, and it was stood up after Benghazi happened. So Benghazi happens, our embassy gets overrun, our ambassador gets killed, we lose some Americans over there that were protecting the ambassador, and obviously there's huge ripple effects all throughout the Middle East and all throughout the United States. And one of the ripple effects was we need a force closer to the proximity of where these threats are that can respond in a prompt manner if we need them. There's truth to that. There's also truth to there was plenty of forces if they wanted to actually respond to anything. Militaries, U.S. military in particular, is very good at putting power where it needs to be. So, but it got stood up, and that's where we went. Typically not where guys want to go because it's not a war. It's not Afghanistan. It's not Iraq. You're just kind of waiting. And up to that point in the conflict, it was just waiting. You're kind of just waiting there for something to happen, and nothing had happened. So my platoon was not really excited about going there, but you're going to do the best job you get, whatever job you get, and we're going to have a great time doing it because, you know, we love each other and we train for this, and we're going to have a good time. So we deployed there, and fortunately for us, an operation did come up that we got to be a part of. So there was still really good, you know, combat experience from a whole different lens in Eastern Africa that I got to take away from that, as well as some of my guys did. So that was the second tour, was just that one big operation that we got to do. But hey, one operation is better than no operation.
Yeah. What was that operation? Highly classified?
No. Well, I mean, yes and no. All I can say is it was what we call an over-the-beach operation. So one of the unique things about SEALs that makes us different capability-wise than other forces is our ability to operate in the water. We're Navy.
Right.
So an over-the-beach operation is taking a group of SEALs from the sea and through various methods inserting them on land to conduct an operation and then getting them back out and recovering them at sea. And it usually involves several different phases of ships and boats moving to a certain location, and then the end phase is usually SEALs in the water swimming to shore. We all trained for it. It's what we all thought we were going to do whenever we were kids, and then we go to war in Iraq and Afghanistan where there's not much water. So it was awesome to be a part of that. And the end state was conduct this over-the-beach operation and grab this terrorist network facilitator and bring him back to try to get some information from him and build out the network a little bit better because he was an operations facilitator, so he had a lot of information in his head. Okay. So that was that operation. A lot of things went wrong, as it does when Mother Nature gets a vote. A lot of things went wrong, as it tends to do when bad guys get a vote. But some minor injuries, nothing too major, but tons of lessons learned. And it gave me a very unique perspective and position of being one of the only guys in the SEAL teams that had done an over-the-beach operation, which came in very handy later on in my career when I was running training. I could give real-world advice and experience to our cells that were training guys for over-the-beach operations. Yeah. But the majority of those guys had never actually had the opportunity to conduct one of those operations just because of where we were deploying at the time.
Yeah. And are those operations that over the beach, is that typically when we don't want to get involved in the air? We don't want a chopper coming in. We don't want people parachuting down. They've got guns. They're monitoring the skies, and so we're going to get them on the water.
A lot of it, most of the reason that you would do something like that is the risk factor is too big to do something else, which is a funny statement because the risk factor of putting guys in the water to swim in is very high. So that tells you innately if that's the route that you're going. But every insertion method has its pros and cons. So helicopters are great, but they're loud, they're big, and they're vulnerable to getting blown up. So if you want to land a helicopter right on site of a target, They know you're coming. They have time to prep, and you're very vulnerable for a certain period of time. So the tactic that we employed was take that helicopter outside of noise abatement range, which is typically 7 to 8 kilometers, land it somewhere where nobody's around, and then we'll patrol the rest of the way there. So this particular area, there was it's what we call non-permissive. So there was no U.S. forces, there was no real intel network, there's no ability, and we're not at war with this area. So there's not like the ability to put a helicopter down somewhere. So the insertion method of over the beach was the right insertion method for this operation.
Okay. So what were some of the things that you took away from that came in handy when you were training later?
Yeah. Anytime you add water, everything just gets 1,000 times more complex. And we always have our contingency plans built out, but they need to be really dialed in when it comes to anything to do with water, just because when things go wrong in that type of environment, they go really wrong. And you need to be able to process that information and deal with it right then and there on the spot. That was probably the biggest lesson learned, was just, hey, anytime something happens with the water, it's a game changer. It's not like, oh, a vehicle had a flat tire. It's not the end of the world. We can change the flat tire, or we have a bump plan where we just bump people to a different vehicle and roll. If a boat flips, it's catastrophic in a surf zone. Now, you can recover from that, but you better have planned for all of those things. So the level of detail and level of and prep that you have to have for that operation is extreme. So getting in the water with your kit on, doing all these different dip tests, your route in and out of that water, because currents and tides and all of those things. And I can insert what I think is the best possible spot on a beach at midnight. But if I come off back to that spot at 3 o'clock in the morning, depending upon where you are, the water might not even be there anymore, or the tides might be different, or you might try to be swimming out on or swimming in on a rip current that you didn't know was there. So all of that planning has to be done ahead of time and leave absolutely nothing up to chance, which we never do anyway, but there's just 5 extra layers of granularity when it comes to planning.
And did you have more time to plan this?
We did.
Op?
So this op was predicated on the Illume cycle. So there's only so many days a month where it's dark enough to do an operation like that. So we had basically 30 days to prep for this. And if we miss that cycle of illumination, illumination being like no illumination, then we would just bump another 30 days and wait for the next Illume cycle. So we had plenty of time to plan, prep, and prepare. And even then, stuff still, a lot of stuff went wrong. But because we had the plans in place, we were able to get it solved and keep the operation going.
How many guys were on that operation? Was it the full group?
I think it was close to 50.
Wow. Okay.
Because you had the assault force going in, and then you had the immediate reaction force that was staged in the water at about 100 meters off of the coastline as a contingency force to be able to, one, drop them off, pick them up, but also to be able to react to different things that might happen.
Okay. And then how long after that operation did you get transferred out of Africa?
Yep. So it was about 2 months after that operation. So we had about 2 months left after that was done.
Okay.
And we had other operations that we had in the hopper that just never came to fruition, just timing wise, never came to, and the permissions, if you're in Afghanistan and it's a declared war, your permission structure is, hey boss, here's an operation. I want to go out. If you're not in that theater, you're basically asking for Security Council, which is the president's advisors or presidential authority for those things. So it takes a lot of time to get any one of those operations approved. So we had 2 months left. There were things that the teams that were there that were trying to do that just never came to fruition. So come back from that tour, asked if I could do a troop commander tour because I want to stay at the team. And my XO, who was great, my executive officer, just kind of laughed and was like, you're way too junior. Like, you have to go somewhere before you take over a troop. So I asked if I could go to our selection, which we call BUDS, or Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL School for short. And again, I've been very fortunate to get every job I ever wanted in the SEAL teams, and they transferred me over there, and I got to run the third phase of selection, which is the final phase. I got to run that for about a year and a half before I went back to a team.
What does third phase involve?
Third phase is still selection, but I really liked it because you could start to actually develop your people and pour into your people, and you're teaching them some skill sets now. So it's very, very basic tactics, marksmanship, demolition, land navigation, that sort of thing. First phase is survival. First phase is just,
don't drop out.
Yeah, don't just don't die and don't quit is basically first phase. Second phase is a lot of that as well, but now you're teaching them the basics of combat diving operation and water competency, and a lot of people go away during that phase as well because the stuff in the water is no joke, shall we say, and a lot of people just can't deal with that environment. So they'll either can't pass the evolutions or they quit after some of those water evolutions. So by the time they get to third phase, there's still no guarantee, and we dropped people, but it's much, much more rare that someone doesn't pass through third phase. They still have to grasp these things that we're teaching them. They still have to pass all the evolutions, but now we know they're tough. They're still doing a lot of physically demanding things. But now it's more, we need you to be able to grasp these skill sets and be able to do these efficiently and safely. And the main reason that someone goes away from third phase is they're just not safe. So they had a safety violation on the range with a weapon, strike one. You usually only get 2 of those, and 1 could be it, just depending upon who you are and how egregious that violation was. So it's still very stressful, but now we're teaching them things. And as an officer, I really enjoyed it because I got to start mentoring at least a little bit some of the officers that were going through training, because the odds are those guys are making it now. First phase, the officers quit at a high rate too, just like the enlisted guys do. So are you really going to dedicate a whole lot of time to 50% of the people that aren't going to be there? By the time they get to third phase, you can have some officer specific like mentorship that goes on. So I really enjoyed it there. And I had just an amazing crew, a bunch of guys that I had rolled with at my previous SEAL team. And it was just kind of like being back in a platoon, only now you're focused on training the next generation.
Mm-hmm. And so you did that for a year and a half?
Year and a half. It's a 2-year tour.
Okay. And this is in San Francisco?
San Diego.
San Diego, sorry.
Yeah, San Diego. Okay. So it's a 2-year tour. And one of the reasons I wanted to go over there was I knew that if an opportunity came up to get back to a team, one of the places that they'll pull guys from first, if they need it, is buds. Because the teams are a critical billet. Buds, they can find someone to fill that role basically. So I was like, well, I'm going to go over there. And the second an opportunity comes up to go back to a SEAL team, I'm going to raise my hand. Yeah. And it played out that way, but it took a little bit. It was a year and a half. An opportunity to do a troop commander tour at Team 5 opened up. And I asked my executive officer, Jimmy May, who's another awesome guy. And he was like, I'll never keep a guy that wants to go to a SEAL team from going to a SEAL team. So they made it happen, and I left that tour about 6 months early to go to Team 5.
Okay. And that was in Afghanistan, or was that to Iraq?
Team 5 was the Iraq tour. So that
tour.
was the counter-ISIS push.
Okay.
Which, again, very fortunate throughout my career to be in the right places at the right time. And some of that, too, is making the opportunity to take advantage of those things. But the time when I went to Team 5 and I was a troop commander, which means you're in charge of 3 platoons now, ISIS was heating up. They had taken over a lot of Syria. They had taken over large quantities of territory inside of Iraq, to include the city of Mosul. And I could tell that there was a chance that we might get to go and actually take part in these counter-ISIS operations that we knew were going to happen. And that's basically exactly how it played out. So after our workup cycle, the command gave me 2 more platoons from Team 5 to take with us over there, because we needed those platoons to do the work that needed to happen. So we got to take five platoons over to Iraq and do the clearance of the clearance to Mosul, and then the clearance of Eastern Mosul all happened on my guy's watch, which was awesome to see.
Yeah.
Now, I wasn't in the city doing stuff like I'm a troop commander now. So my job is more, one, training the guys and making sure they're prepared to do that themselves, and then enabling them when we get over there. So I was feeling more of like a leadership staffing type role when we got over, and my guys were the guys that were doing all the heavy lifting. But hey, like, it was extremely rewarding, because that's what you want as a leader. Like, you want to get your guys the ability to do the job that they trained for. And every single one of those platoons got to do as many kinetic operations as they wanted to, which was unheard of during that time in the war, 2015 to 16, or really 16 to 17. So it was the best tour that, I could have possibly had as a troop commander.
Right. Were there any operations during that time that stuck out as either being really successful or maybe went really sideways and that, were big lessons for you?
Most of them were really successful. The one that always sticks out to me is just, I've only ever lost one teammate, and it was on that deployment. And it wasn't because anybody did anything wrong. It was just, it's war, and, guys' lives are on the line, and the enemy always gets a vote. And our EOD chief, JJ Finan, was directing vehicles out of a minefield, and the vehicle that he was in, which he had his door open so that he could spot the vehicles and direct them. The vehicle that he was in ran over a pressure plate, basically right where he was sitting with the door open, and guys went to work on him, but it just wasn't going to happen. So that one's ingrained in the memory for sure. But even when something like that happens, everybody around him did exactly what they need to do, which is all you can ask for in that moment. So
what was your reaction as the leader? Was it like, hey, we should have done something better? Or was it, because like if there wasn't anything specific that went wrong, how do you take a lesson away from that?
There's always something that you can take away, even when you feel like guys did all the right things. Part of it when something like that happens is at least in this career as a leader, you just have to be prepared. And God willing, it never happens, but you have to be prepared for if that is to happen, because there's so many effects that happen from that. One, there's the event itself that you have to debrief mercilessly, because you owe it to that individual to take away any lessons learned that you possibly can, no matter how harsh, to keep someone else from suffering the same fate. So there's the event that you have to debrief. But then JJ was an awesome teammate. And you've got a bunch of guys who were there with JJ going through that with him, trying to revive him, trying to save him, that you now have to deal with that human factor as well. And that whole time, it's not like ISIS is saying, hey, we'll give you guys a timeout to deal with this. Those guys have to get back to work too. Yep. So there's so many factors at play that you have to be concerned about as a leader. And I was very fortunate that we thought through a lot of those things. I was very fortunate to have good key leaders inside of those platoons that were thinking through those things as well. And then my senior enlisted advisor, my senior chief, so my right-hand man, was just an absolute stud. So he went up to the site where it happened and spent some time with the guys, and was just basically there for them. So it was a horrible situation, but I think all in all, I think the leaders that we had in place in that troop, my platoon commanders, my platoon chiefs especially, they dealt with that as best as they possibly could deal with that. And unfortunate reality is those platoon chiefs, it wasn't their first rodeo dealing with that. So they had a lot of experience for what needs to happen. And this sounds crazy to people that aren't in a community like this, but a lot of times the best thing that you can do in a situation like that for those type of personalities is to give them space to grieve in their own way and then get them back to work, because that's their purpose.
Give them a mission.
Give them the mission. That's what they came into this community for. And giving them that to focus on again can be a really healthy thing, which would blow a lot of people's minds, but it's the truth.
Do you think that's why, and I mean, I kind of know this is why, so it's a little bit of a leading question, but why when guys get out, whether they leave or whether they finish their full service time and retire, that's kind of when all the PTSD, the different problems kick in, because now there's no bad guys. Now you're a citizen. Now you're just kind of here. There's
a couple of different factors that I think come into play. And one of them is definitely there's that purpose. There's that overarching purpose. But then there's also the brotherhood that they've been a part of, whatever community, whether it's Marines, Army, Air Force, whatever, that they've been a part of. And now they're not a part of that. So a lot of times those issues are still there, but it's that circle that keeps those issues at bay. And now that circle of your friends that care about you is gone. And it's not a malicious thing. The military is a machine, and it has to keep moving. So when you leave, even your buddies that are going to keep in contact with you, their schedule is not their own. They're still going to deploy. They're still going to leave to train. So it removes some of that protective layer that comes with that close-knit brotherhood. I think as big of a factor in my personal opinion is a lot of people that had issues with PTSD, they weren't really cultivating any type of purpose outside of that community, whether it's Marines, Army, SEAL teams, whatever the case may be. Some have families, but they're not cultivating those families, and the job consumes everything. And there's an unfortunate amount of people that I know that are good men, that get out, and then their marriages fall apart within a year of them getting out because they've spent 20 years cultivating their time in the teams and not cultivating their marriage and their relationship with their wife and their relationship with their kids. So they get out, those stressors are still there. There's additional stressors on now because now you're trying to make a way in a different path. And now if you don't have that network on the outside, I mean, what are you really left with? And I think that's a lot of times when the darkness can be provided an avenue to really take hold. I was very fortunate in that I have an amazing wife, and my focus has always been on being the best SEAL I could be and being the best husband and father I could be. So when I got out of the SEAL teams, it was still enormously hard, but I had my wife and I had my kids, and that's all that really mattered to me at the end of the day. Now, I think when you combine that recipe, you've got a really caustic cocktail there that can cause a lot of issues for people when they don't have those things anymore.
Yeah. Is that ultimately the reason you decided to get out?
Yes. I wanted to be in for as long as the military would keep me. But when your kids start to get older, and my only two goals that I ever had for myself as a man was to be a good SEAL, which hopefully I accomplished, and be a good father and a good husband. And after my troop commander tour, all of my getting to actively lead in combat situations was done. So there's still amazing ways as a senior officer to make a difference in the community, and we need good leaders in the community always. But my focus became more on, at some point in time, those two goals, they're going to contradict each other. So my kids were getting older. Deployments start to take a little bit more of a toll on them than when they're 3 or 4.
Right.
And what I realized was when I look at my career and my timeline, if I did 20 years and retired, the year that I could retire, my oldest son turns 18 and leaves the house. So I'm like, well, great. I could do 20 years. And then when I finally have time to be at home with my kids are going to be leaving the nest really soon. So that was kind of the epiphany for me of, it's never going to be an easy decision, but the right time to do it is right now.
Yeah. And is there kind of a process to getting out? Because I assume it's not as easy as I'm done, don't send me back on tour. Is there sort of like
it's easier than you think.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, at least
I guess I should rephrase that. I assume there's a really easy, dishonorable way to get out.
True.
Right.
But there's
kind of a process of like, hey, in the next year I want to get out. Like,
yes.
Kind
you
of
have a contract. So whether you're enlisted or whether you're an officer, you're signing on for a certain amount of time. Officers can either take like an enlistment or a retention bonus that locks them in for a certain amount of years, or they just go from tour to tour. Okay. So, hey, I'm locked in because I accepted this tour. At the end of this tour, I have to decide if I want to do another tour or if I want to get out. If you're locked in for a period of time because you took like a retention bonus, then you're locked in until you can finish that time up. I never took a bonus. So for me, it was I just needed to tell my boss, who was the SEAL that was in charge of all of the West Coast, it's called the Commodore, because he was the one that put me in the training, running the training command. So my route out was sitting down with him and having a conversation I was not looking forward to, and telling this guy that had advocated for me and was watching out for me and was preparing the way for the rest of my career, to tell him, hey, I'm done after this tour. And like any good SEAL, he busted my chops like he should, called me a quitter and some other things. But then as soon as that was done, he's like, hey, man, you're making the right choice. And if that's your priority, like, you're doing the right thing. And they were super helpful. Yeah. Just like, hey, let me know what you need from me. That being said, and this is going there's no way for this not to sound the opposite of how I want it to sound. Not everybody had that experience. One, your reputation matters, and two, how you do it matters. Mm-hmm. There's people that held their cards close to their chest and then last minute decided they wanted to get out, and that affects a lot of things in the community because the community is managing where people go. So if all of a sudden I'm like, hey, I'm out and I'm supposed to go fill this tour next week, that leaves massive ripple effects in the community, and you're going to piss a lot of people off, and they're not going to make it easy for you.
Yep.
So one, I think I had a good reputation, and two, I was just honest and gave them as much early warning as I had. As soon as I figured out I wasn't going to do it, I sat down with them and just said, hey, sir, here's what I'm thinking. Finish this tour out. I've got another year, but at the end of this, I'm looking to separate from the Navy. And he was very supportive, as was the entire community.
Do you think that approaching it that way set you up for a lot of the things you're doing now?
I think it definitely...
You would have burned bridges otherwise?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And I've always been the benefactor of good advocates throughout my career. And my master chief, who ran the command at Team 5 when I was a troop commander, who became one of my best friends, started working for Echelon Front. And, Jocko put me through my first workup. That's where I first met him, but we weren't like buddies or anything like that. So like we knew who each other were, but there was no personal relationship there. So Jason advocated for me and talked with Jocko and Leif at Echelon and just said, hey, Sean would be a really good fit here. You should talk to him. And then same time he came and told me this is a great job because he was working for them now. And he's like, this is a great job. It gives you all the things that you want. Family time, that type of thing, freedom of schedule, and you also get to drive a lot of impact with these great companies. And then I had the conversation with Jocko, and I know because Jason was advocating for me, and again, I think reputation has a little bit to do with that. It was the easiest conversation in the world. Yep. He was just like, we're here when you want it, if you want it.
Cool.
Now, once you get there, you still got to be a good ambassador and perform.
Right.
But it was paved, the way was paved for me by good advocates.
Yeah. And I think I remember, I think you've been on his podcast twice now, Jocko's. I don't remember which one. I think 404 was one of them. I can't remember the other number, but I remember him saying, I think you were talking about how you ended up there, and he had just said, and I don't know if this was Jason or another guy, but he was like, the word on the street was that like he squared away. Like he left the right way, served honorably, good guy. There wasn't any question of like, is he gonna cause drama? Is he a wild card? It was like, nope, he's good.
Yeah.
Check. Stamp.
That was basically the situation.
Yeah.
And because look, a company like Echelon Front that does leadership consulting, your reputation is based off of the people that go and work with the companies.
Right.
So Jocko and Leif are very hands-off in all the right ways and very hands-on in the right ways of who we bring on to work for the company matters very much.
Yep.
So having Jason and others advocate for me ahead of time was super beneficial. But the biggest lesson for me there is just those opportunities are not there for everybody. And just take Echelon Front out of the equation. Like your reputation matters. And your reputation takes a very long time to build, and it only takes one bad action to completely destroy your credibility and your reputation. And I think, especially as men, your reputation and your honor, it should be one of the most important factors that you have. And the thing about honor, and I've told my sons this too, my daughters are a little too young to have this conversation, but what I've told my sons about honor is it's very important. You can earn more of it, and you can give it away. No one can take it from you, but you can definitely give it away. And once you give it away, good luck trying to get that back.
Yeah.
So, do the right thing, and those opportunities, when they're there to take advantage of, you're in a better spot to be able to take advantage of them.
St. Jerome famously said, "Ignorance of Scripture is ignorance of Christ." As Catholic Christians, we need to be immersed in the inspired Word of God to encounter Jesus Christ, the incarnate Word of God. To take your Scripture study to the next level, go check out the completed Bible study courses with Dr. Nicholas Liebisch, available at scriptureandtradition.com. You can log into the massive and ever-growing audio library and stream whatever course you want whenever you want. Every Bible study comes with detailed lesson outlines based on the most trusted and reliable Catholic commentaries and scholars available today. Dr. Liebisch has 20 years experience teaching Scripture, and not only are you going to find his approach masterfully designed and organized, but also easy to understand, humorous, insightful, and extremely helpful for your spiritual life. If you want to know Jesus better, you've got to know Scripture better. Go to scriptureandtradition.com and start listening to these Bible studies regularly. You can trust that Dr. Liebisch's courses will open your eyes to God's Word in incredible ways. Visit scriptureandtradition.com and use the promo code DVPOD for 10% off your student membership. That's DVPOD, DVPOD, for 10% off your student membership. Go check them out. Let's talk about Echelon Front a little bit. I've only been to one of their events. I met Jocko up in Philly like a year ago, and then that's how I got in touch with Father Stokes. And then
Was that one of the live events?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
cool.
super cool.
Yeah.
I've never been to the muster, or I know there's another, like the FTX, like the training. I haven't been to any of those. I think those might be a little bit harder to get into, or maybe more expensive. But he just did the live Jocko Live, big amphitheater. Came out really dramatically, did his reading, and then kind of, shouted at people for an hour, and then, did Q&A. Really fun. Definitely worth going to.
Something I want to point out there is you said you met him.
Yeah.
Where'd you meet him? I already know the answer.
What do you like in line?
Yeah. And how long did he stay in line?
Probably 2 hours.
Yeah. He stayed in line until, and this is what he does all the time.
Yeah.
He stays in line until there is no line, which is mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I cannot remember if I think everyone who came was allowed to come in line.
Yeah.
I don't think it was advertised, but I was like, I'm going to meet Jocko.
Yeah,
They're not going to say no. Like, I'll get in line. So I think they sort of were like, thanks for coming. Exits are that way. A bunch of people left, and then I could see people lining up on the wall. And I was like, I don't know if they got VIP tickets, but like worst case scenario, I get up there and they say, where's your VIP ticket? And I say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have one.
Yeah.
So I'll just go. We'll see what happens. I'll just yell his name loudly. But it was great. I stood in line with a bunch of other like squared away guys. Like all of us had our book they wanted to get signed. Some of don't worry about it. Some of them had been to events previously, so we were talking about that. And then some of his instructors, who now I know their names and I'm familiar with them, but at the time, just a guy wearing an EF polo came up and talked and asked where you were from and had you been to other events, and then, are you in the service, or are you a firefighter or whatever. But yeah, I went up. It was actually a really cool interaction. I went up and, you get, honestly, you could probably get more time, but I think most people get up, take the photo, and then kind of feel pressured to like let the next guy go. But I went up and I got a photo, got him to sign my book. A buddy of mine had just graduated the fire academy, so I got his book signed to give to him. Awesome. He's a big Jocko fan, and so I told him that and told him his name and everything. And then I asked him, I said, hey, have you ever heard of Father Capodanno? Because there's a priest who wrote a book called The Grand Padre, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I'm not trying to pressure you. I know you have thousands of people you could have on your show, but you should consider having him on. And if I ship you a book, will you try to read it? So he said yes, and I got Father Stokes to give it to him.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe he'll have him on someday. But I was like, yeah, this would be a really good... just a awesome story, like he does all these military stories, but it's a priest who died in combat in Vietnam.
Yep.
His canonization cause is underway, and my dad actually used to work for the cause. So he went to his house and slept in his bedroom and documented a bunch of stuff for the cause. So anyway, that was just kind of a cool 30-second interaction.
Yeah.
I was like, I hope it's someday I'll see a podcast with Father on and be
That's
like, great,
awesome.
I made that happen.
Yeah.
So we'll see. So Echelon Front, you started there. What's the schedule like? They have a bunch of clients that they come, and obviously they've got the musters and the events that Echelon puts on.
Yep.
But then they also get contracted out to go speak at companies and do leadership seminars.
The main thing that Echelon Front does is leadership consulting and leadership training.
Okay.
So our main focus is helping people be the best leaders they can possibly be, and the main avenue for that for us is working with different companies. We don't care what company it is. We don't care. That's not actually a true statement. If a very immoral company came and said, we want to work with you guys, they would be probably, no, you're not going to work with us.
Yeah.
But when I say we don't care, like size doesn't matter, people doesn't matter. So our mission is to try and teach these leadership principles to as many people as we possibly can. And most of the time that we spend is focused on different companies that reach out and have a need for leadership development or leadership consulting. And some of that is, frontline leaders, and some of that is executive leaders. It's just whatever the company wishes to achieve. The bigger events like Muster was really designed because what we realized was we're teaching a lot of these principles, but the only people that we're getting to teach them to that are benefiting from them are people that work at these companies that we contract with. We should have an event that allows anyone to come to the event and hear and learn kind of the exact same things that we teach. So Muster was meant to be more of an individual-based introduction to all of the leadership principles that we teach. And then some of the other big events, like you mentioned, the FTX, those are supporting functions. So a company that we work with might go, hey, we want to take this to the next level. And we'll go, okay, great. This is awesome. Like, here's a good program that supports all the things that we've been teaching you, this FTX program. So all of these other functions were really meant to support the primary function, which is training leaders. And our main focus is companies.
And for your role at the company, and I don't need to know all the specifics, but is it sort of like, hey, we've got, Google wants a seminar, we've got this company, that company, and then we also have these events, and you can sort of pick which ones you want to do, or are you assigned and you can kind of decline if you have like a conflict, but otherwise you're expected to do it?
It's a little bit of both. So Muster is kind of an all hand on deck evolution. So everyone goes to Muster. There's 1,000+ people there, and everyone's teaching different things and interacting with the attendees at Muster. Then we all have our personal calendars and our schedules, and then our team will go, hey, Sean, here's a company that really wants to work with you. Here's the dates that are available. Does this work with your schedule?
Nice.
And they just look at the calendar and they go, okay, cool, it works. So we also have different kind of business units, if you will. And I really like the one that I'm in, which is more focused on our long-term relationships with clients. Okay. Because some companies will come and they'll just say, hey, we want, 1 day. We just want to work with you guys for 1 day. We want to get some of our junior leaders exposed to some leadership training. But we really only are interested in, a full day of training. The teams that I typically get to work with, they're on board for a lot of leadership development over a certain period of time. So nice. I really get to build out really good relationships with the leaders and individuals at these companies. And I've made really good friendships with some of these leaders that are investing in their team. So I really like that part of the job that I get to focus on mostly, which is the longer term relationships with different clients.
Okay. And how long have you been at Echelon?
4 years.
4?
Yeah.
Okay. Has your schedule changed a little bit since the beef company started, or are you able to just do that in the off time?
Yeah, I just do it in the off time, basically. And my schedule changed the second that Jocko talked with me. So when I first got to Echelon, you want to be a good new guy. Yeah, you just say yes to everything.
Yes, sir.
You're like, yes. So about the 6-month mark, we were at a muster, and Jocko pulled me aside. He's like, hey, man, how's your pace going? I'm like, no, it's good. He's like, no, seriously, how's your
you're burnt out.
Yeah, how's your pace going? And he probably already knew. And I was like, I'm gone a lot. And he said, listen, man, the work is there. We have more companies that want to work with us than we have the ability to work with right now. And we're trying to change that. But the work is always there. And what I'm telling you this because if you don't get comfortable saying no, you will never be home. Because there's that much demand for people that want Echelon Front to come and work with their leaders. So you just have to be comfortable saying no. If you have a family event and you don't want to be gone for it, just say no.
Yeah.
The team knows this. The team is prepped for that. And they're going to go, oh, cool, Sean can't go. Let me see if Cody can go. So as soon as he said that, I was like, okay. And now my pace is very manageable. And we have guys that have different goals. We have some guys that have no kids at home. They're retired from the military, and they'll be gone 3 to 4 days a week. For me, I try to do 1 day a week with a client on site, and then there's always calls and virtual things that happen in between. But it's been such a huge blessing because I get to do this really impactful work with an amazing team, and I drop my kids off to school most days. I pick my kids up from school most days. I'm at almost every sporting event.
Nice.
I get to help with things at the school. I'm on the board at the school. I've helped with like the rugby club. I've helped with different things. All the things that the Navy just doesn't allow you to do, I can now do, and solely because of the way that Echelon Front is run.
Yeah. And for those clients, are you getting paid, hey, this client, we're charging them X amount per year or per session, you get a percentage of it? Or is like, if you retain the client, if you reached out to, like, I don't know, Roof Simple, like someone local, and you say, hey, I think you guys could use leadership training. That's like
Marty.
Right. That's like your client, and then you make that money, or is it all through the company? And
it's either or. If you meet a company, like my buddy Carlos is really good at this. He'll sit on a plane flying somewhere, and he'll just talk to people.
Yeah.
And then somebody, he'll be like, oh, what do you do? What do I do? What do I do? I do this, I do that.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, that guy's calling Carlos, and over a couple, phone calls, he's like, I think I really would like to have you come out for this event we're having.
Yeah.
So there's that. And then there's also a pipeline, mainly because of Jocko's podcast, the books. Mm-hmm. People know about Echelon Front. They know what we do, and they'll reach out and they'll say, hey, I'm interested in your services. Here's the problem I'm having. Here's what I'd like to accomplish. Yeah. And then our client development team will work with them and say, okay, here's, I think, the best thing that we could do to help you out in your situation. And here's who I think would be a really good fit for you. I have a background in construction. Yep. I have a background in executive leadership. So both in the military and, I was the COO of a tech startup. So if it's construction, they're like, hey, Sean understands like your problems. Like he's lived that world, that very painful world. Like he's lived it.
Yep.
If it's a software company, it's not that the leadership principles change, but I don't have much experience with like a software or sales company, but we might have people on the team who do have a background in that. So they'll say, hey, Anthony would be a really good fit here for you. So there's some of that where it's like our goal is to genuinely provide them with the best sources in leadership training we possibly can, and that is trying to make it as personalized for them as we can as well.
Yeah, that's awesome, and that's probably why it's been successful. Is it's not just read the book, fill out this. Here's the PowerPoint. We have some SEAL who's gonna like speak in this really motivational way, and he's super cool. Cool, pay us. Yeah. It's like actually we have this guy who has worked with your company before, or who used to work at Amazon, now is here. Now he knows all the problems with Amazon. Great. Yeah. He's going to be your guy.
Yeah. Echelon Front is definitely not a motivational company. Like it is a consulting leadership training company. And that's what it's designed to do. Right.
It's not just a TED Talk.
No, not at all. And most companies don't invest in the number one thing that's going to determine their success, which is the capabilities of their leaders. They invest in technology. They invest in all these other things that they need to be investing in. But when budgets get tight, the first thing they look at is their training budget. You're like, okay, well, maybe there's some areas to tighten the training budget up, but it's not in developing your leaders, because your leaders are the ones that are responsible for enacting all of these different plans and, quarterly KPIs that you have. Like if you're not enabling your leaders to be the best at that, you're going to have some speed bumps that you're going to run into. Yeah. So, and I know that's what this company specifically does better than any company on the planet, is develop capable leaders.
When did the idea for Primal Beef spark in your brain? Like when did that click?
As soon as I moved out here.
Really?
And the guy's hat who you're wearing, Paul,
Cottonwood Ranch.
Yeah, I knew Paul before I moved out because he lives right next door to my brother-in-law and sister-in-law.
Yep.
And we'd come out and visit a couple times a year, and go link up with Paul and his beautiful wife and their awesome family. And so I had that built out a friendship with Paul before that. And then we come out here, and we have our own cattle, but we run cow-calf. So I wasn't finishing cattle and processing cattle. So I reached out to Paul, who does do that from Cottonwood Ranch, and just said, hey, we want to buy a cow from you. And he delivered the first beef, and it was mind-blowing. Like literally the best beef I've ever had in my entire life. And that kind of got the wheels turning of, well, we're very fortunate because we live in this community where I can, one, either raise my own livestock or reach out to my neighbor who raises, the beautiful, all natural, premium Black Angus beef. And I can source my beef directly from him. And I get a handshake. I know exactly where that beef came from. I know what that beef was fed. More importantly, I know what it wasn't fed and what it wasn't given, and I can feel good about serving that beef to my family. 50 years ago, that's how most of the country was set up. But now these big urban centers kind of dominate the country. And you're not buying a cow from your neighbor if you live in downtown New York. You're not buying a cow from your neighbor. DC might not be the best example of this because there is, like, right outside of DC, there is farms.
Yeah, there's a raw milk market.
Yeah, exactly. But if you're in, like, Chicago, like, you don't have the connection that we have. So that's kind of where the genesis for Primal came up. Was there's no reason for that because we have the internet, and the internet is capable of connecting people to sources of beef like ours, where one, you can develop a relationship with your producer, and two, you can feel good about knowing exactly how that animal was treated, where that animal was raised, the fact that they weren't given any antibiotics or growth hormones or things that cattle that are raised healthily don't need any of that stuff. And you can make that connection and you can source it online and we can deliver it to your door. So that was really where it came from, was this idea that the food system that we probably grew up with even 30 or 40 years ago is no longer in existence for the majority of the American public. So how do we restore that connection? We have the tool for it. We just had to build out the platform for it. And that's really what Primal Beef, that was the genesis for it.
What sets Primal Beef apart from all these other companies? Like, you've got Good Rancher, you've got, obviously there's other SEALs or every other military guys that raise their own cattle. I assume, similar quality, but what's kind of the motivating factor that you feel comfortable, like, I can pitch this as the best beef? It's not just the way that it's raised or finished. It's also, the veterans you're supporting, it's whatever. But what's the elevator pitch for Primal Beef?
The big thing for Primal Beef is control, quality control. So Good Ranchers, awesome. Like, they're giving not just Americans good quality farm raised beef, but they're providing farmers who might not have an outlet for that. They're providing them with the opportunity to sell their beef through Good Ranchers to those people, which is great. Butcher Box less so because they source a lot of beef from overseas, but stick with the Good Ranchers example. They're doing great stuff. The thing that I believe that we have a leg up on with anybody is I can tell you exactly where your cow came from. It came from one farm right here in the Shenandoah Valley, and I can tell you exactly how that particular cow was raised. I can tell you exactly what that cow was fed. I can tell you that they had no hormones and no antibiotics. If a cow ever gets sick and they do have to be treated with antibiotics, that cow just doesn't come through our line. It just doesn't happen because we don't want to pass those things over to the customer. So it's the consistency aspect of it, where if you enjoyed the steak and the ground beef and the different cuts, that's what you're going to get every single time you order a box from us. It's going to be the exact same experience. That is not the same for other companies because they're sourcing from different places. The other aspect of it is when we built it out, we wanted it to be a mission. We wanted it to be something that people could feel proud to be a part of. It's not just what I truly believe is the best beef you're ever going to taste. It's the intangibles that come along with that. So the supporting, local farm. The processing plant that we partnered with is an outfit called Seven Hills Abattoir down in Lynchburg, Virginia. And they are never going to be the biggest, and they don't want to be. They're hanging their hat on super high quality, finishing, dry aging, packaging, hand cutting, all of those things. So some of these processing plants that these other companies are utilizing, they're processing 1,000 cows a day. I'm sorry, like, your quality is not there. Your consistency is not there if that's what you're processing, because it's a numbers game at that point in time. So there's that aspect of, like, they're the best that we found, and we looked for a long time before we decided to partner with them. The icing on the cake for them is the guys that run that company are very mission focused as well, and they hire through a work exchange program, which if you don't know what that is, it's basically people that made bad decisions, ended up incarcerated, got out, and are looking for a second chance. And there's not a lot of people out there that are willing to give them a second chance. So these guys, Dalton and his crew, as a Christian mission, basically said, hey, this is an avenue for us to give them a marketable skill, butchering, processing, which is an art that's going away, by the way, because everything's now getting done with machinery. Give them a marketable skill, but also be a blessing to them and giving them a second lease on life, and then developing them as humans while they're here as well. And I've got to meet a bunch of these guys, and it's completely life-changing for them. One, the fact that someone would give them a second chance and take a risk on them. And two, that Dalton and his crew pour different things into them outside of just how much value can I get out of them from, 7 a.m. until 4 o'clock at night. Yeah. Like, they're genuinely out to help them become better humans and to recover from their previous mistakes. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like a no-brainer once we found that out. Yeah. And then the last aspect of it is, because Jocko and I and Paul and Declan, we didn't want this to be something that was just completely self-serving. We wanted to be able to give back to the community that supported Jocko and I. So we partnered with the C4 Foundation, which is a not-for-profit that was founded by Charlie Keating, whose son, Charlie Keating IV, was killed overseas on the tour right before mine in Iraq. So he started this foundation in his son's honor, and it gives treatment that's not available through the military channels. It gives treatment and all these different sources of aid to SEALs and their families that they just can't get anywhere else. So he bought this big ranch in California, and he developed it into basically the ultimate retreat for SEALs and their families. So they can go there, they can get cognitive therapy, they can get, they can talk to chaplains and these different mental health professionals. They bring different like sports scientists up there to get guys back into shape. They bring like yoga instructors and things to help piece people back together. And they basically just give them space to reconnect with their family and loved ones, and then give them all these other assets to help make sure that they're recovering from events that they've experienced and just the life in the military as it is. So anytime we sell a box of beef, we set a cut of beef aside that comes out of our margins, not the customer's margins. Like, we're not charging the customer for this. It comes out of our inventory, and then we donate that cut to the C4 Foundation, and they distribute it to SEALs and their families. So we wanted Primal to be something, not just great beef, but something that our customers genuinely feel proud to be a part of. So every single phase of the company, every single department or operation the company has was focused on what's best for the customer. How do we provide extra value to the customer?
And recently, I guess not so much recently now, but you came out with jerky.
We did.
Which was a long process, is my understanding, to get it just right, dialed in.
I'm very anal when it comes to quality control, and we partnered with a veteran-owned company that's only about an hour and a half from us, but because of where we are geographically, it's in Pennsylvania. He's a former, I almost said ex-Marine, God forbid. He's a former Marine, and he started this jerky company, and he does really amazing things with jerky. So we went up there, I met with him, and over the course of about 4 or 5 months, we were testing different things and developing our jerky. And the biggest thing that I was passionate about was our beef is all natural and there's no crap in it. And like, our jerky is going to be the same thing. Yep. The beef will speak for itself. If you look at any of these other jerky companies, flip it around and take a look at the back of that label and disgusting. Tell me if you can even pronounce half the things in there. Yeah. The reason they do that is because their beef is terrible. Yep. So they have to add all these other things to include, 1 million grams of sugar on top of it to get it to taste any type of something that someone would want. I knew our beef was the best on the planet, and it's the same beef that we're using for the jerky. So I told them minimal ingredients and nothing artificial. So if you look on a bag of our original jerky, I think it's 3 ingredients. It's like beef, water, spice. Yep. And the spice is salt and pepper. Yep. And that's really it. And if you look at like our teriyaki, it's still very minimal ingredients and nothing artificial. And the final product, when we went back and forth for a long time developing it, when he finally gave me the final product, which is now the final product, my mind was blown. And his was kind of too. He was like, hey man, this is This is by far the best, like, all natural jerky we've ever made.
Totally.
So we're real proud of that too.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of love that went into that. A lot of love and maybe a little bit of frustration on Evan's part with me coming back and saying, do it again.
Not great.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Well, and the cool thing about it too, for anyone who hasn't tried it out, is you can go onto the Primal Beef website and you can do a one-time order, or what I do is the monthly subscription. When you break it down price per bag, it's more affordable than what you'd get at a gas station. There's probably other companies that maybe are a little bit cheaper, but nowhere near the same quality. And then you can do a mix and match. If you have a certain flavor you like the most, you can do all that. You can do a mix bag. So I usually do mix bags, and then I just have them sitting around, and I give them to my guests. And then when the upstairs gets going, then that'll be part of the subscription. Is if you want to opt into that, it's like, hey, there's jerky downstairs for you.
Yeah.
Which I think would be sweet, because every guy needs cigars, jerky.
Hell yeah, they do.
All of that. And if I can combine it all into one, hey, every month you're going to have cigars showing up, you're going to have jerky showing up, come and get it.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's just going to be the best thing.
The first time I sent it, when we've got the final batch, I sent it out to Jocko, who still lives in San Diego. And he was super excited to try it. But I sent him, I think, like 12 of them just to start with. And he was going to give me some feedback on it. And then he was also going to shoot just like a quick promo for it.
Sure.
And he hit me up and he's like, hey, dude, you need to send more. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, I ate all of it before I could do the promo. And I'm like, okay, check. Like, we're mission accomplished. Like, he probably sat down and crushed like 5 bags at a time or something. But he's like, send me more, because I couldn't wait. And I ate it all before we did the promo.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I want to be respectful of your time.
Yep.
If you don't mind, I'm going to ask a couple rapid fire questions, then I'll let you go. So I sent out a little poll to our listeners, and so I have a couple questions. And these can just be like 2 or 3 sentence answers. Doesn't have to be long. What's the best advice you can give someone to be a better husband and father?
Oh, a better husband and father. Be intentional. Be the best advice, and have a plan. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of chaos and distractions that happen in life. And what I have found is that if I don't start my morning with prayer and thinking through the things that I want to accomplish as a husband and a father that day, they don't happen. And an example of that might be, hey, my son's 14 years old. He's the best 14-year-old I've ever met in my entire life, but he questions stuff now.
Yeah.
And hey, as a dad, sometimes I'm like, maybe just every now and then, son, just say, okay, Dad. So there's been times where I've got frustrated with that. And he's not meaning anything by it. He's just questioning things, which is a good trait. So if I don't start my morning going, I need to be prepared for those moments, and I need to react in the way that a good father would react when their son does something like this. If I don't start my day like that, that opportunity comes and goes, and I fail. So I would say, analyze yourself, see where you're failing, and then start every morning with the intention and plan for how you're going to improve on that thing.
Okay. Favorite cigar?
Oh, I actually brought it with me.
I would have bought it for you if I knew what it was.
I have, there's 2. So one is an Ave Maria.
Okay.
It's phenomenal. And then the other one, my goodness, I'm blanking on the name.
Is Ave Maria is the brand, and then there's a subsection?
Yep. So Ave Maria has, and they're like the coolest labels of all time.
Yeah.
They're like giant Crusaders on there. Yeah. But they have a bunch of different ones. And I'm typically a fan of like Connecticut wrapper, a little bit lighter cigar.
Totally.
There's one that I fell in love with recently, and I'm forgetting the name, but it's one of the My Father. It's La Muerta or something like that. But it's got this beautiful red label with a white enamel picture of a woman's head profile. So it looks like, those old like Greek plates where there's a blue background and then just a white silhouette. That's what the label looks like, and it's under My Father, and they're phenomenal. I've almost don't smoke anything other than those now. I like them so much.
Nice. Well, the best cigar is the one you like, right?
Yes, 100%.
So, do you have a everyday carry? And if so, regardless of what it is there one that you would recommend to people who are getting into concealed carry or just want an easy everyday carry? I
have multiple, because a carry is a tool. And you use different tools for different purposes. The one that I carry the most is the SIG 26 or 365 macro.
Cool.
So compensated from the factory, holds, I think, 18 rounds, and it shoots lights out. And it's slim, and it's very concealable. A lot of people like the Glock 43X. I've never been a huge Glock fan, but they're phenomenal guns, and they work real well. But that's the one that I carry the most. When I say the most, on Sundays or events where I'm going, where there's going to be a lot of people that I know are going to be there. So mass, something like that. I have a 226 Legion carry that I bring. And the reason being is I think it's very unlikely that I need to use my weapon system to defend myself directly. Like, I think it's very unlikely that someone comes to me and tries to rob me. I think a more likely scenario is I'm somewhere where something else is going on. And in that case, accuracy matters a lot more than getting it out of the holster really, really fast, or concealability.
Okay.
So the 226 Legion carry for me, I can shoot lights out like nothing else, probably because I have hundreds of thousands of rounds with the 226. So that's not the best for everybody, but it's the best for me. Okay. So every day running around to the store, the 365 goes on me. If I'm going to mass, if I'm going somewhere where I'm a little bit more intentional about it, the 226 carry comes with me.
Okay, last two. Do you have a favorite cut of steak, or maybe like an underrated cut that people need to know about?
Flat iron. Flat iron is a game changer, and it will blow your mind.
Okay. I've heard the same thing about the hanger steak.
Yes, hanger steak is phenomenal. Yeah. Phenomenal. Hanger steak is usually a pretty large cut, whereas a flat iron is kind of like a single serving cut. Hanger steak might be single serving for some of you folks out there. Another really solid one is a skirt steak. Very long, very thin, kind of similar texture-wise to maybe a flank steak, but the flavor is better.
Okay.
It probably wouldn't be something that you would just cut up and eat like a steak. It's usually something you use for tacos or something you would use beef in, but the flavor on it is unmatched. But if you have not had a flat iron yet, go get a flat iron.
Yeah, and there's a good beef company you can check out
we just happen to know one.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Last one. This could be a kind of a longer answer, so don't feel pressured to go into too much depth. You mentioned before we started recording that you're friends with Jack Carr, used to be a commander of yours. He's got the terminal list, right? The series. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that there was a pretty good balance between Hollywood kind of dramatization of war and also Carr's kind of very specific gear focused, kind of like SEAL focused writing style that they incorporated? Do you think they did a good job?
I think they did. And I think it's because Jack has been involved very heavily with all of those things, which is not normal. Most of the time people go, I'm paying you for your work and to leave me alone, and I'm going to make a movie out of it, and I don't care what you have to say as the writer. That was not the case for Jack. And knowing Jack, I'm assuming that's because he went, I don't care. I'm going to be there whether you want me to or not. Knowing Jack the way I do, that's probably how it
I'm
going to
get shot in multiple scenes.
I will get killed every single movie. But I'm willing to bet that it was part of the negotiation that he would be there as an advisor and to keep things realistic, because it matters and the audience can feel those things. And I think he did a really good job of that. And I also think I'm an avid reader too, and I've always been reading kind of the same books that he grew up with, as far as the spy novels and the thriller novels. Seeing where he's come from, his own personal writing style, from the Terminal List to his newest work, it's night and day. Like, he is truly developed in his own, like he's got his own writing style now. Like, he's totally developed, and he's hit his stride, and it's awesome to see. Terminal List was a great book. His latter books are even better than Terminal List, and it's because, one, he's just naturally a great storyteller, but two, he's now, it feels like to me, confident in his writing style, and he's got his style down pat. And they make for awesome books. Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah. All right. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate your time. And we'll see you tonight at Artifacts.
Right on, man.
All right. Thanks, Sean.